All right, so get this. We're going to talk about a story where a tiny two-page philosophical paper doesn't just, start a debate in some stuffy academic hall. No, this thing incites actual violence, conspiracies, even a manhunt. So how on earth does a simple theory of knowledge become that dangerous? Well, let's break it all down.
So, picture this. We're on the set of The Daniel Bellum Show. It's the biggest late-night talk show in the Midwest, right? The audience is fired up, the host is doing his thing, but then, as he starts to introduce his very last guest, one guy just starts booing, loudly. And the weirdest part? Bellum hasn't even said the guest's name yet. Talk about a tough crowd. It turns out the guest is this guy named Freddie Llorat, Freddie, and he's just a pharmacist who happened to publish a short paper. The host, Daniel Bellum, is probably thinking, okay, great, 10 minutes of dead air. Oh, he had no idea. The interview barely gets started and the tension just explodes. People start shouting from the audience in a language nobody seems to recognize. Bellum's trying to get everyone to settle down, but it's already too late. A man just stands up in the audience, pulls out a pistol, and starts firing, just shooting wildly. It's total chaos. And when it's all over, the host, Daniel Bellum himself, is lying on the floor, bleeding. He's been shot in the shoulder. And this is the question that drives this whole story. Why would a philosopher, or, a pharmacist who wrote a philosophy paper, get shot at on live television? Freddie Llorat isn't some controversial politician or a famous celebrity. He's a pharmacist. So what in the world was in that paper that made someone want to shoot him? While the motive, the controversy, all of the chaos, it all comes back to that one short, two-page article, just a little piece in a philosophy journal, but it contains an idea so powerful, so potent, that it threatens to unravel some of society's most fundamental beliefs. And there it is, a theory of knowledge. Freddie himself called it a kind of philosophical theory of everything. Basically, he was trying to explain the most fundamental thing there is, how our minds even begin to understand reality. And here's the kicker. The paper doesn't even mention religion or science, but its implications, man, they're about to set both of those worlds on fire. One of the first people to really get it was this astrophysicist, Dr. Stephen Hawking. He saw right away how powerful this idea was. He pointed out that Llorat's logic, well, it defines reality so tightly that it just doesn't leave any room for something like an indefinable, all-powerful God. And doing that, as you're about to find out, is a very dangerous move. So, what did Freddie actually write? What is this big, dangerous idea? To really get why this thing is so explosive, we've got to look at the core concepts. And you'll see, it's actually pretty simple on the surface, but where it leads, that's where things get wild. Okay, so the foundation of the whole thing is this concept called reciprocal reciprocation. Let's just call it RR, it's easier. Think of it like a simple light switch. It's either on or it's off, a 1 or a 0. Llorat's argument is that our brains work the same way, using pairs of total opposites to understand literally everything. You can't have one without the other. It's actually super intuitive when you think about it. How do you know what left is? Well, you have to understand right. How do you know what up is? You need down. Llorat says these simple pairs, these RRs, are the absolute most basic building blocks of how we make sense of the world. And then these simple blocks start to connect, like Legos. They build on each other. The theory says these RRs cascade. So you start with left and right, then you add up and down, then you add near and far. And when you combine all of those simple pairs, your brain constructs a much more complex, abstract idea. In this case, the very concept of space itself. Okay, so this is where it all leads. This is the big punchline of the theory, what Llorat calls the reality situation. He says the ultimate RR, the biggest pair of opposites, is this. Our subjective existence, us thinking and feeling, and the objective existence of the universe out there. One is totally meaningless without the other. And here's the controversial part. He argues that if something doesn't fit into this dynamic, if it can't be observed or defined by an opposite, then it's, in his own words, just fantasyland. And as soon as this idea gets out into the world, boom, the fallout is immediate and it is massive. This isn't just some dusty academic debate anymore. It becomes a full-blown cultural firestorm that starts splitting communities right down the middle and, as we saw, escalates into a very real threat. You had people taking sides almost instantly. On one hand, religious fundamentalists called it a direct attack from an atheist. But on the other, you had more liberal theologians saying, wait a minute, This has merit. This actually gets to the core of what religion is all about. And of course, the media just went into a total frenzy while Homeland Security started picking up credible death threats aimed directly at Fred. And this is where the threat gets terrifyingly real. There's this big, heated meeting of the National Interdenominational Council, all these major religious leaders arguing about what Llorat's theory means. After the meeting, one of them slips away, gets into the back of a limo, and pulls out a burner phone, one of those untraceable ones. He makes one call. The order is short, simple, and absolutely chilling. This has gone way beyond a debate. A hit has just been ordered on the author of a philosophy paper. But here's a twist. Even as the danger to Freddie's life is ramping up, a new mystery starts to bubble to the surface. Some of the people who've really dug into the theory start to think there's a hidden flaw. Or maybe it's not a flaw. Maybe it's a final, devastating conclusion that no one has had the guts to say out loud yet. Remember that council meeting with all the religious leaders? Well, one of them, a Bishop Thornton, says something really cryptic. He hints that the real danger of the theory isn't that it's wrong, it's that its final, unspoken conclusion is something truly awful. He says that to even point it out would be a curse. So later, the bishop goes on TV to try and explain what he meant. He argues that Llorat's logic is a double-edged sword. Sure, it undermines religious faith because it rejects anything you can't define, but he believes that if you follow the logic all the way to the end, it also destroys scientific reason. It basically leaves humanity with nothing, no foundation at all. And the core of this flaw, this curse, actually comes to Freddie himself in a dream. It's voiced by his late Uncle Jake, and it's the ultimate paradox. Think about it. If our minds need these finite, opposing concepts, the whole R thing, to understand anything, then how can a finite mind ever possibly understand something infinite, like God or a scientific singularity? The whole system just breaks. And this brings us right to the shocking end of the story. Freddie's been on the run, he's been hiding, he's been struggling with what his own idea really means. But the full, horrifying truth? It's about to hit him like a ton of bricks. Right there, in that dream, the last piece of the puzzle just clicks into place. Freddie jolts awake, shouting, "Oh my God!" because he's finally seen it. He understands the devastating final conclusion of his own theory. He gets what the bishop's curse was all about. But that moment of terrifying realization is cut short, because as he sits bolt upright in bed, he sees a dark figure standing at the foot of it. And that figure is aiming a shotgun right at his face. It's his own 12-gauge shotgun, the one he thought he'd lost. And that's it. That's where the story just stops. It leaves us with Freddie staring down the barrel of a gun at the exact moment he's understood a truth so powerful it could destroy both faith and science. So we're left with this huge, haunting question. What was it? What did he figure out? And more importantly, is any idea really powerful enough to kill for?